My name is Josh Knowles. I am one of the production designers and sort of live arts curator for the House of Fairy Tales. I've been working for about 4 years for them, and I basically sort of help design, manage spaces, and then book acts and artists to sort of come into them. This started a couple of years ago. We did an event called Candlelit Matinee, which is this is called, in the Shunt Vaults under London Bridge. I don't know if you've been there.
I do,
but
I know them well, yes.
Yes, so it's like a kind of very dark and gloomy space. So I said, why don't we do a festival for kids that's about making art in the space there, and getting the teenage artists and the young artists to be making the installations, and we'll support them. They'll have a platform to make work on and show work in a sort of professional context. So we did that, and we had this rhetoric about kind of shadows and lights, which we sort of do anyway, as House of Fairy Tales, as part of one of our kind of themes. But also talking about young people crossing from the sort of childhood to adulthood. It seemed to sort of chime in many ways. So we were looking for a name, something matinee, or something about shadows and light, and we came up with Candlelit Matinee, and it sort of went from there, and we've done it 3 or 4 times in various locations to quite powerful effect. Deborah Curtis and Gavin Turk, who run the House of Fairy Tales, they brought me on board, and I offered up ideas, and they were well received, and then between us as a group we developed those ideas and sort of made them more fully formed, and bring in artists who can really sort of bring those ideas to life and kind of then take them further than we could have. What have we got today? Well, in the tent today, the idea is a lot of theatre and music hall and old early cinema, silent movie rhetoric that we've worked with. So we've looked about for things that could really fly within that theme, and we went to the BFI, and they gave us some zoetropes and praxamascopes, all these old-fashioned formats of like early pre-cinema and pre-film, pre-moving image sort of objet to work with, and we're running workshops off those. They're fantastic because they're so tangible, and you can really get your hands on them and you can really see how it works. It's very simple but very effective. The kids really like that, and they learn a lot as well because of the whole idea of persistence of vision. So if the workshop leader's there at the time, they can really sort of give the kids a bit of science at the same time as giving them an interesting arts and creative experience. We've got the silent movie workshop, which is kind of a bit of the centerpiece. We've got a green screen, centerpiece. We've got a green screen over there, and we've got a live feed that's going through a projector to the main stage, and we've got a variety of props and backdrops, and we've got a great team of guys really supporting all the kids coming in and just sort of letting their imaginations run riot and making instant silent movies to be showing on the main screen in the theatre, which is a beautiful and wonderful thing. Sometimes there's someone on the microphone telling a story to the film. Sometimes it's completely freeform and absolute madness, which is also lovely. And we've got a wonderful in-house orchestra, like our pit orchestra, who are basically sort of running the overtures and the soundtracks to our little films that are being made in real time. The Matchbox area is run by a fantastic artist called Sarah Bridgeland, and she makes sculptures and sort of pop-out collage, sort of 3D collages with matchboxes. And because of the name Candlelit Matinee, we thought that kind of chimes with our themes, matches, lights, shadow, and it's just such a nice little format that she's got this idea of you take a matchbox and create a sculpture with it. It's so simple, it's very kind of I don't want to say rootsy, but that's the wrong word, but accessible, I think is the word I'm going for. Yeah. It's very DIY, and kids see the matchbox they can create something. It's within their reach that they can create something and usually surpass their expectations, and in doing that they see a little bit of magic of something everyday and banal turn into, through a sort of alchemical process, turn into something a bit more magical, something artistic. A little theatre of dolls who are absolutely incredible puppeteers. Two fantastic girls, Raisa and Frida, girls, women in their own right, who are amazing artists themselves as well, and they create theatre and puppet workshops for themselves in their own practice, but they have got a real natural ability to invite the audience, the public, children, families into their process and get them making and creating puppets and characters which are very easily made. They're collaged with bits of found objects, found images out of newspapers and magazines, all shoved together, and then couldn't be simpler. You use an OHP overhead projector and put the puppet on the projector, and hey presto, you've got a shadow puppet show. What could be more essential and simple and dynamic than that? Holly Miller, again, I haven't got enough praise for the artists that are working with us today. Holly Miller is an incredible sort of performance artist. She's a dancer, but she's sort of very much working in sort of devised theatre as well, and we thought, let's create this kind of lair because it works so well. It's such a dramatic idea, you know, the sort of whole idea of the portal or the rabbit hole, the maze. It works in fairy tales and it works in experiential situations like this, that you're just creating a kind of a portal or a gateway. People lose themselves a little bit. There's a bit of license that comes with stepping through that gateway. There's a slight change at some sort of subtle but elemental level in the way people interact. So let's bring them into a maze or a sort of a Warren-like situation and give them something to respond to. And so we asked Holly, if we give you this, the title of the fox. I don't know if you saw the graphics. Each area has an animal assigned to it. So we gave her the fox, and she came back with this idea of having a suitcase full of the essences of all the animals, and that the kids would come in and she would have the essence of the sort of spirit of the animal, or not even the spirit, the essence, almost the physical essence, in this jar, and she would bring that idea to life, that the animals in their elemental form are in these jars, but she'd take the audience through a journey first, which was very much about dancing and moving like the animals, maybe being imbued by the spirits of the animals. Very, very interactive, very magical, and then the payoff is that they get to meet this sort of spirit, and then they leave slightly changed for the better. We're not interested in sort of instigating nightmarish visions in children, and we're not interested in really dissecting their dreams and their nightmares in a sort of psychoanalytical way. But it's something that the House of Fairy Tales struck on a while ago, just asking people to draw their dream. You know, draw what you dreamt last night, or the last vivid dream you had. Very simple. You know, it happens to everybody, and then when people actually do this, the results are just bizarre and incredible. A group called the Enchanted Hunters, and they're a kind of a DJ fashion pairing. I don't know quite how they define themselves, but they're fantastic at creating. They create their own fashions, and they also DJ together, and they're sort of very hip and happening, and they bring fantastic energy to us. But they also work at a place called Beyond Retro, which is a very popular sort of trendy spot for getting vintage clothes, and through this fantastic connection it allowed us to use all these clothes and bits of fabric, and we can initially the idea was like a recycling, like an upcycling experiment. You can take the clothes away, but you have to pimp them, recycle, refashion them before you do. But in this case there's a slight variation where they're making animals. They're under the wolf banner, so they're making animals' ears, wolf ears and wolf tails. But I think you can also do a Red Riding Hood outfit if you want. I think there's several layers, as you've pointed out, to what we do. I think, let's talk about the first layer, that learning is play. So that's kind of where we're coming from, that basic idea that you play to learn, and you learn through play. And so we'd like to encourage that. The first way that you encourage playfulness is you have to, I think, disarm people, give people a license to feel a bit more relaxed, a bit freer about how they behave, and be just a bit more open to responding and interacting with our workshops and our project ideas. And we found the best way to do that, and we've been doing it anyway in various other ways as artists or installation artists or whatever we are as a group, whatever background we've come from. The best thing is to be theatrical and be larger than life, and invite people again to walk through this sort of virtual threshold, through this kind of rabbit hole idea. Once you do that, I feel like there is, as I said before, a change. There's a change in the way people respond to the world. It's almost like a gateway. It's like I don't want to sound like some kind of hippie or anything, but there's a sort of a perception change, and I think people are much more likely to engage with the things that we do. And very importantly, I think also, if you're theatrical, you're allowed to force an issue. You're allowed to force people's hand a little bit, not in a scary way, but in a way that people are forced to respond to you. If you come out, if you're very kind of extrovert and come forward at people, then they're forced to respond. And we're not asking them to, asking anything of them other than to find something for them to enjoy and to connect with. So it's an easy ask, really, but we're sort of breaking that shyness barrier, I suppose you call it, or that, I don't know what you call it, reserve. I think there's two things. First of all, children, you're right, don't need much drawing out, because they're attuned to this type of situation where they're given loads of paints or crayons. Some of them are, not all of them, I should say. I like to think that we're giving the opportunity to people who don't have this kind of environment to really splash about in the paint and have fun and be creative, hopefully learn something. But the kids, yeah, they're used to it, but it's the adults that are kind of often shocked, and they're the people that we have to disarm first and foremost. And when they are disarmed and when they're playing, then the whole idea of us being a family experience, which is really at the heart of what we're doing, really comes forward. And suddenly it's a level playing field, and the dads are asking the kids how to do something, and the kids are telling their mum what would look good, and suddenly everyone's equal again. And for a family, I think that's hugely important, because often we get bogged down in roles, whether they're kind of, family roles or kind of work, where people have got their lives to lead, and you sort of fall into these quite narrow channels of behaviour. Whereas this is really like an opportunity for everyone just to sort of shun all those expectations and really just be a group of people, a family, that are just enjoying each other's company. And very importantly, the other answer to that question is that we are making quite simple projects, but there's complexity behind them. So the simplicity that we provide, that we present, is backed up by a series of educational ideas and sort of information, really, about the world, that if the kids, through the self-initiation, ask the right questions, they'll go through these sort of channels and doorways of information, and the workshop leaders will be revealing more about the universe, really. So that's also huge. Yeah. If you give someone a rock and just bash up that rock, and sort of till you find all the little chips of matter in there, such as Ian Dawson, who's one of the artists we work with, does, he can then explain how geology works. But the basic thing is someone's hitting a rock with a hammer and they're having a brilliant time. Or if you just say, I don't know, I can't think of an example right now, but virtually everything we do is very simple, but with a lot of complex learning available behind the curtain, as it were. I think we are thinking about it very carefully. But when the right thing comes along, it's completely intuitive. You just know when it's going to work because you want to engage yourself. If someone comes along with an idea, or you see them at a project, and you think that's fantastic, you just understand why people would want to gravitate towards it. And if you could see that there's a layers behind that, that kind of whether it's philosophical or scientific, or whatever that is about thinking, that you can take the argument and the conversation beyond the simple activity that's still fun, then we're absolutely onto a winner. So in a way, that's our kind of process, is finding those simple yet underlyingly complex art projects and artworks.